And we get it rolling on the Krueg Show. Big Wednesday. Cyrus Saatsaz in the house. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Corte Madera. They're in Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California. Also, we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krueg, Krueg, and they will match you up to your first $100. And also thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They are based in along the Monterey Peninsula, 205 Cypress Avenue down in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264 for all your sports cards and collectibles needs. Well, Cyrus Saatsaz, a longtime Bay Area media guy who's had his Locked On channel for years and years on the Warriors, and now is going it alone on YouTube, talking a lot of Warriors, is with us.
Not
on
quite
the show.
alone. I got the Believe Network.
Oh, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, you're now with the Believe Network.
More independent than I was, sir. Galeri, it is great to see you, brother. How you doing?
Good to see you, man. How's things? Yeah. How's things? And the Warriors very, very active. And there's a lot to get to, and
a lot.
Some of it is incredibly juicy. So why don't we start with the Ramona Shelburne report? According to her report, Warriors owner Joe Lacob reportedly led the team's quote cold negotiations with Klay Thompson. Supposedly the relationship side between Klay and the Warriors deteriorated before the two sides actually parted ways this week, with Klay apparently, not being too excited that the Warriors didn't show a lot of enthusiasm in bringing him back. Eventually, Klay contacted Steph and implored him not to try to salvage it. Anthony Slater of The Athletic published a story yesterday examining the events that led to the split between Klay and the Warriors. And I guess when Klay's reps were negotiating an extension with Golden State last year, Slater says that that Klay Thompson asked Curry not to exert any influence to try to get team executives to make a stronger effort to keep him. And of course, eventually Klay agrees to a 3-year, $50 million deal with Dallas. Talk about a guy who gambled on himself and lost, huh? I mean, The Warriors offered him 2 years and $48 million. I'm not a math expert, but that's $24 million a year. And he went for 3 years and $50 million. And this just in, that's $16.6 million. That's a whole lot less than $24 million. So Klay gambled on himself and he lost.
Well, first of all, that Ramona Shelburne story is fascinating for a lot of reasons. Just adding to what you said, according to that story, Klay and his reps came last minute to the Warriors because they according to Ramona Shelburne, Klay Thompson counter proposed 4 different contracts, meaning like through all this, 4 different times they came to the Warriors and said, "Here's another proposal. What do you think?" And every time the Golden State Warriors responded to them with, "We just can't do it yet." That was the quote that reportedly the line that was given to Klay Thompson and his reps. There was a 5th contract proposal at the very end where Klay Thompson came to the Warriors and said, "How about 2 years, $40 million?" And the Warriors' response was, "We just can't do it yet." And
what do they mean by that, Si? I mean, is that because of cap reasons? Explain that to us from your perspective.
So the reason is that Lacob and company, and I love this story for a lot of reasons. We're going to really break it down because it confirms every suspicion and every report I've been saying on Golden Days that there has been a fissure between Steve Kerr and Joe Lacob in terms of the vision for this team, in terms of what to do moving forward. Joe Lacob and company, like, they're ready to move on. Reportedly, according to this story, like, Klay started to get perturbed as far back as 2022 after the team won the championship. Klay supposedly wanted a contract extension back then, and he started to grow unhappy 2 years ago when the team would not come to him with an extension. And so this has led all the way up to now where team ownership basically has been looking at this organization and the roster thinking, time to move forward. It is time to change things up. What we're doing is not working. And Klay Thompson came to this revelation, as you reported, that it's time to move on. It's just time for a fresh start. And Klay has not been happy here for 2 years. That's the gist of this story, largely because he feels disrespected by the lack of commitment from the Warriors. And it led to now where he's gone, and he picked out Dallas himself. He in the story, he reportedly said that the Lakers reminded him too much of the Warriors. He wanted a fresh start. This is an amazing piece. We're going to break it down in detail, but that's the gist I got from that perspective. I don't know what any thoughts you want to add to that.
Well, okay. First of all, the disrespect. We all should be as disrespected as he's been. If you look up Klay Thompson basketball reference, you can look up what he's made. And didn't he make like $50 million while he was hurt?
Or close to that, yeah, in the 40 range, yeah.
So what are we talking about? I mean,
we're talking about pride in the.
I mean, it's like, sorry, Klay, you're wrong. You weren't disrespected. They paid you a shit ton of money when you were hurt. I mean, they paid you the ultimate respect. I mean, how does he not see that? I mean, it's 13 years, but I mean, I think this guy's totally lost his perspective on reality. Dude, you were hurt and they extended you anyway. They paid you a ton of money.
The parallels between him and Ray Allen are strikingly similar, man, because Ray Allen left the Celtics for very similar reasons too. He felt that like the team was prepared to use him in a different role, right? As more of a role player. And Klay reportedly in the story was okay with that part of it. Like he accepted the fact that the team had communicated to him, like, moving forward, we want you to be a role player. We want you to come off the bench. He would begrudgingly accepted that part of it, but he wanted the money. He wanted the commitment. And the Warriors just kept telling him, wait until we figure out what this roster looks like and what the salary cap looks like. And Klay just did not want to wait.
So they were hoping they would do their business and then squeeze him into whatever they had left.
Correct.
Over, kind of a thing.
That's exactly.
And according to Ramona Shelburne, the Warriors' decision to extend Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole in 2022, quote, didn't sit well with Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. According to her, she's quoted here as saying the Warriors prioritized extending Jordan Poole for 4 years on $140 million, and young swingman Andrew Wiggins, who got 4 years on $109 million, over Thompson and Green the summer after they won the championship, which didn't sit well with either of the two veterans, according to sources. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting. I'm reading here that the plan was to bring Klay back and start Podziemski and bring Klay off the bench. He's probably going to wind up starting in Dallas, so he's probably happier on that front. He also probably has a better chance to win a title in Dallas, but I don't think this is about a title. I think this is just about feelings. It's just about my feelings are hurt, and but you know what? I'll give Klay Thompson credit because there's nothing sadder than the person. Somebody's done with the relationship and the other person isn't. And, you've got that person who isn't done with the relationship desperately trying to keep the relationship going, even if it's a bastardized version of the original relationship, or even if it's a shell of the former real relationship, just because they fear going alone and going out there and having to make a new relationship. That's what I get the sense that at least Klay didn't do that. At least he was like, you know what? I'm not going to beg to come back. If they don't want me, I'm just going to move on. But I also think the Warriors are right to not want him. I mean, they offered him too much and he turned it down. So, I mean, you got offered $24 million a year. You turned it down. You settled for $16 million a year. I mean, Klay gambled on himself and he lost. And he played pretty well this year, but then I don't know. How would you describe the year? I mean, the people who want to argue that he had a good year will bust out all kinds of stats. Oh, he shot 39% from three and this, and he was 41 from, middle of March on, and all these cherry picked, homegrown stats to try to say he had a good year. But we all saw the final game. He shot 0 for 10. To me, there's a heaviness to Klay Thompson. I'm not talking about overweight. I'm talking about just like, he was such a easy breezy young player. He's a totally different entity now. Now it's like the entire team was like, tiptoeing around him, and Steve Kerr was tiptoeing around him. I mean, the biggest news here is what you said off the rip, which is Dunleavy said, like, we're urgently trying to get it done with Klay. Or I think Kerr might have said, we're desperately trying to re-sign Klay.
Yeah.
Well, if the coach says you're desperate to re-sign him, the GM says you're desperate to re-sign him, but Ramona's saying that Joe Lacob was very cold and kind of let things go and kind of sent the message through the pace of the negotiations that he really didn't want Klay back, and Klay sensed it and moved on.
Well, first thing, it's interesting to know. The Jake Fisher thing, by the way, I don't know if I trust that story. I don't even know how old that story is. Like, I don't know if Brandon Pajemski is penned in to be the starter at the moment. So I don't know if that part's true.
Be on the team.
It's inconsequential, though, at this point. I mean, because Moses Moody could start. I mean, Wiggins could start at the 2. I mean, I don't think that part's been determined yet. But just to finish up, I just want to read verbatim what Ramona Shelburne wrote in the story.
Please do.
Quote, Thompson's representatives had proposed at least 4 contracts to the team. Each time throughout the season, the response from the Warriors was that Thompson and his camp needed to wait while the franchise tried to improve the team in other deals. So they basically were at, unquote. They
own his bird. I mean, in the rules of the NBA, just try to explain this to people on a basic level. You own a player's bird rights. And they own Thompson's bird rights. Isn't that what this is about? Where you can exceed, it's not a hard cap like the NFL cap, it's a soft cap, and it can be exceeded. There's penalties for exceeding it, but you can't exceed it to retain your own players if you own their bird rights. They owned Thompson's bird rights.
Correct.
So isn't that why they told him wait till we're done with all these other things? Because once you sign a player, there's only so many slots, right? And once you sign a player, you retain Thompson's bird rights, but if you sign Thompson first, then the cap is more stringent. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, you could read it that way. You're right, because the Warriors own Thompson's bird rights, they could wait until everything else is signed and then just give him whatever he wants. And then, but you'd probably have to be dealing with these really harsh first, second apron penalties. Which, side note, by the way, with these sign and trades, the Warriors are now hard capped at the first apron. Which is approximately $178 million. So even the fact that they're hard capped means I don't think you could even use bird rights at that point anymore. But bigger picture, I think the Warriors are waiting for these other deals to fall through just to see how much they could actually offer Klay. They didn't want to give him money and then hamstring themselves in the pursuit of other free agents. Right. Basically, long story short, the team was ready to move on. And, with or without Klay. And their message to Klay was, look, we want you here, but we're not giving you the bag. And we want to upgrade this roster and then figure out how we could fit you in after the fact. And Klay's looking at hearing this going, dude, I'm one of the pillars of this dynasty, and you're treating me like a role player. And, it's pride and ego. It just that's where all that stuff kicked in. But Larry, I thought there was something even bigger in that story, much bigger than the Klay Thompson piece of it. I mean, the Klay Thompson part's huge. And it's very important, side note, to note that the Warriors in this story over the last 6 months, year, I don't know what the time frame is, but we all know about the LeBron James piece of this, right? That they tried to make the trade for LeBron late last year. They also tried to get Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets, who's now with the New York Knicks. We all know about Paul George. We're going to get into Lauri Markkanen in a second. This story confirms what my source had told me as well. Monty Poole has been reporting this as well, that the Warriors are pursuing Lauri Markkanen. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But so this piece was important, that the Warriors have been aggressively pursuing these superstars to pair up with Steph. They do still care about Steph's window. That was an important revelation. But I think the most important part of this story is the fact, and this is, and I'm so glad the story came out, because now my first story for Yardbarker, which I've been sitting idly by while I waited for this information, which is now confirmed. And I'm going to read this verbatim. Quote, after losing to the Lakers in the second round of the 2023 playoffs, the front office wanted to shake up the roster, sources said. But Kerr and the team fought, as one source put it, to keep the roster together, going on a mini 4-1 run before the trade deadline this past year. Bought the team time to play out the rest of the past season without a major trade, unquote. What this means, and this has been my long suspicion, I reported this on my old program and on the Golden Days that Bob Myers left because of Steve Kerr, because Steve Kerr routinely puts his foot down and wants his own imprint on this team, even though he's not the GM. But this story confirms that Steve Kerr has been a huge reason why this team has not moved on sooner than it has. The dude has no idea how to maintain success. He's put his favorites above the most highest likelihood for success. He plays his favorites. He has his bias, and it is bullshit, man. I'm so tired of like hearing this. Just drew my ire for Steve Kerr because he's continually putting what he thinks is best for the team, referring to his gut over what logic dictates, which is that this team needed a shakeup. And I'm so glad this was reported because now it's out there as fact that Steve Kerr was the impediment to this team not moving sooner, not making a trade at the last deadline, not making a shakeup last offseason. It's because of Steve Kerr. So if you're angry,
it totally fits too, because think about what is Kerr's strength. If you said, what is the strength of Steve Kerr? The strength of Steve Kerr is he's really good at keeping the group together. And isn't it interesting that that's what he wanted to do behind the scenes? He wanted to keep the group together because that's basically all he does is just kind of keep the group together. Yep. If there's some story that's too ugly for the media, they bury it. If there's something that happens behind the scenes, he makes sure it doesn't become public and he makes no reference to it. There's all kinds of things that have gone on, I'm sure, behind the scenes that he's just covered up through the years. And he didn't even want to approach or even broach the topic of Klay coming off the bench because he knew the ego involved. And, there's definitely, he's the guy that keeps it together. So that's not shocking to me that he wanted to keep it together. By the way, we have a guy in here who says, where is it? Okay, here we go. Eddie 757. He says 148 people watching, only 3 likes. Get the likes up, people. Help Cy. Krueg is a force of nature and needs no help. Okay. No, but
thanks, Eddie 757.
We do have, if you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do. Please. We got almost 1,000 people in the room right now.
Nice.
But, watching the show, but hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps more people find these streams and the algorithm, and YouTube spits it out to more people. So please hit like. And then if you hit subscribe and click that notification bell every time we go live, you'll be alerted and you can not have to miss a minute of Cy or me. And we appreciate every single one of you guys. So if you could hit like and subscribe, that would be awesome. And we just had this one from Yada Mean, who says, been liked. There you go. It does kind of show, though, that there's been different factions in this thing. It's like Joe Lacob. It's really weird. It's like Joe, to me, is a hard guy to really put your arms around and figure out where he's coming from. Why? Because at times he seems very much warm and he wanted to go to the finish line with Steph and Draymond and Klay. But then at other times he's like, I'm a self-made billionaire and I'll do whatever I need to do to win in business. And it's like, which one are you? Are you the softy that has a sentimental side that wants to go to the finish line with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green? Or are you the Bill Walsh, get rid of him a year too soon, cold-hearted, I didn't become a self-made billionaire by accident.
I think he's that guy. I don't think there's any debate.
But he hasn't traded these guys. I mean, he had ability to trade Klay Thompson. He didn't trade him. So I also think what's going on here too, Cy, is that there's so the penalties of being in the repeater tax and on the hugged up against these first apron, second apron, gets so punitive with the way the new CBA is written that it might as well be like a hard cap because you really don't want to exceed it and you got to dip below. So it's like
everyone's going to get there at some point.
So what was the motivation this offseason to build a team that can maybe get Steph another ring, or was the real motivation to reset the finances and dip below the tax and, make sure you're not a repeater tax candidate.
Well, I think so. Joe Lacob said some years back, and I love the quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said he does not want with this Warriors team a repeat of what happened to the Lakers with Kobe Bryant. Like, he did not want a parade, like a farewell tour that lasts like 2-3 years, where you're surrounding Kobe with just scrubs and you're rebuilding while having a star. Like, he has expressed he doesn't want that. I think what has prevented Joe Lacob from being full bore Eddie D in terms of personnel turnover when their time comes, as opposed to just holding on and being nostalgic, is Kerr. He's got a head coach who won 4 titles, and they've gone through this together. I don't think they have an acrimonious relationship. I think Kerr and him, to a certain extent, get along. I think Joe Lacob has a respect for Steve Kerr. So when Kerr is sitting there fighting for things, like, he's not just saying no to him, like, right to his face. I think that's what's going on. Someone in the chat wrote that, there was confirmation bias, that, I just want to believe firmly that there is in fact a division. No, I'm reporting facts, man. The facts of the matter, at least based off Ramona Shelburne, who is a credible journalist, who is one of the best covering the NBA, is that Steve Kerr was literally getting in the way of the team wanting to make moves. They wanted, that story just said right there, they wanted to make a deal at the trade deadline last season, which logic dictated should have been happening. The team was not going anywhere. And Steve Kerr put his foot down. He loves Wiggins. He loves Klay. And he was like, no. And I don't know if what's going on behind the scenes is him being petulant. I don't know if he's just sitting there telling him, like, holding up 4 rings, saying, or 9, I'm sorry, like, saying, who are you going to listen to? But to me, from my impression is, and my impression is based largely off what I'm hearing behind the scenes, the actions in front of us, is that Steve Kerr is holding on to everything. He wants his boys. He's going to ride this out with Steph as long as that takes. And then you have Joe Lacob, who is constantly forward thinking, wants to maintain success, because otherwise I don't think he'd be trying to pursue all these stars. I mean, he's right now pursuing Lauri Markkanen. He thought he had Paul George. So the dude wants to win. I think he's Eddie D all the way. I just think he's Eddie D if Bill Walsh had not stepped down, and if Bill Walsh had told Eddie D, I want Joe to stay here as long as I'm here. I think that's what's going on here. But Bill Walsh stepped aside after 8-9 years, and Steve Kerr's not going anywhere still. So that's where we are.
The roster.
What do you think? What do you think, by the way?
I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. I mean, I do think that there's a disagreement between Kerr and Dunleavy and Lacob. Or Lacob doesn't care about his relationship with Klay as much as they care about theirs. They wanted to be on the side saying we're desperate to have him back. But I mean, you knew something was going on. I mean, I knew something was going on. Like, I heard Kerr say, we're desperate to sign him. And I knew they weren't. And I heard Dunleavy say, we're desperate to sign him. And I knew they weren't. So,
maybe Kerr was. Maybe Kerr was, but he's not the GM. He's not the owner, right?
Right. I mean, and this is Joe's team, and Joe makes the decisions. And just the fact that, it wasn't getting done, and I don't know. It just seemed like the handwriting was on the wall. It was quiet. I think they just wanted to move Klay on because I think everybody tiptoed around Klay. Mm-hmm. Steph did, Draymond did. It's so funny because Klay Thompson coming up was not this player. He was not this heavy player that needed to be like tiptoed around. He was loose and fun, and he plays both ways, and he just loves to play and run and play and run and run and run. He just was like a joy to his whole game. This last couple of years, he has been a big downer. And I would say 90% of the downer comes from Klay Thompson because he can't handle the twilight of his career. Yeah. And he's not having fun, and he's trying to get back. He shot them out of the playoffs, out of the play-in game.
2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. But people forget the Lakers series. The last game of that series, he was 2 for 12 from 3. So that's 2 playoff games in a row. He missed 10 3-point shots, except in the last Lakers game, he made 2 of them. And in the King series, he was 0 for 10.
I predicted it the night before, too. I told Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds, I'm like, Klay Thompson is going to shoot them out of it. And they're like, oh my God, how could that be the case? He's such a great shooter. I'm like, you guys haven't been watching the Warriors every day like I have. I saw that game against New Orleans where they got destroyed.
Yeah.
I saw Steph Curry limping down the stretch. I knew Steve Kerr was going to wind up sitting one of his key young players because they didn't play well in the first 5 minutes. And sure enough, it was Trace Jackson Davis. Didn't play well in the first 5 minutes and then benched his ass. And he was one of the best players on the team. And so it's like, that was not wise. So there's obviously a little bit of a wrestling match going on here. Now, as far as what they have done, I don't like Kyle Anderson. I don't like him at all.
I know. What did you say last week about him? What did you call him?
His nickname's Slow-Mo. He's got a shot that reminds me of like a fifth grader. Like a guy who's too weak to shoot the ball up here, so
are we
shoots
moving
it down here.
Are we moving on to Kyle Anderson now?
No, I'm just saying I don't like. I don't love that. I don't love slow-mo. I can't. His shot is the ugliest shot I've ever seen. His game is a beneath the rim, boring game. The best thing you could say about him is that he at times has been effective. As far as the show, he's a terrible show. He's an awful guy to watch play basketball. I mean, he's got some basketball intellect. He's not like he's a dumb player. He's a smart player, but his shot is truly ugly. I mean, it's one of the ugly. If you want to say that Klay Thompson's got the most beautiful shot you've ever seen, this guy's got the ugliest shot you've ever seen. This might be the ugliest player in the league as far as watching this player. He's not quick laterally. He's not powerful. He's not he's a decent defender, I guess. He's an NBA player, but you're not winning jack with him. I mean, come on. He's just nothing. He's just
he's still
he'll contribute. I see what this guy's saying here. He's like, but, somebody's like, where is it? Slow-mo. Here it is. $1 out of 15 cents said slow-mo isn't a sexy pickup, but he'll contribute positively. All right. I mean, to what? 42 wins?
Well, so
I don't love that move. I do like the Buddy Hield move. Now, there's Kings fans in the chat who are like, oh, man, wait until you see Buddy Hield. He really sucks. But you know what? Buddy Hield sucked in Sacramento because his shot selection got crazy. On a team that has Steph Curry, that's much more of a defined pecking order. On a team like the Warriors that relies on pace and space, a guy like Hield who can shoot the rock and move and get open and move off the ball and free himself up, I think in some ways he's an ideal fit for this system. I think Buddy Hield's going to thrive with the Warriors. I really do.
It's funny that you and we're like the complete opposite on this. Like, I like the Kyle Anderson pickup. I don't disagree with anything you say in terms of his playing style. He's boring. Ugly. He's dull. He does have an ugly shot, but he's 6'9". He's a high basketball IQ. He doesn't make mistakes. He can bring the ball up if he has to. So he's not a terrible ball handler. He's basically like about as average as it gets, but he has size. He makes smart plays. He's not a liability defensively. And again, you're getting someone who's 6'9". So I'll take that over a 6'3" signing all day, every day. And then the Buddy Hield thing, I'm hoping for the best, but I mean, dude, he shot 38% from three last year, which is not great. It's good.
What did he shoot? 36?
I'm sorry?
What did he shoot?
I thought he shot around 38% last year, 37, 38, which
is career. He's a career 40% 3%.
Correct. So hopefully last year was just an anomaly. But here's the thing. Like Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield. First of all, if this is where it ends, and the good news is it's highly unlikely it's going to end here, which is why it's hard to start concluding about this offseason, because it seems like the Warriors have one more big move coming.
Right. But I almost guarantee it doesn't end here.
Yeah. It can't.
I mean, the roster's terribly unbalanced. It's just it's a wreck right now.
Absolutely right. But right now, this offseason so far seems like a rich man's version of 2020. Remember in 2020 when the Warriors decided it's time to take a year off? We're exhausted. Clay's hurt. Steph played 4 games that year, broke his hand. Who crushed his hand? I forgot who it was that fell on him. Was it Tice? I already forgot who the guy was, but somebody crushed his hand. He broke his hand. He was out for the year. So that was like a washed year, right? But remember those free agents?
Yeah, who was it that fell on his hand?
I forgot. It was just it was a big dude. I already can't. Someone in the chat will enlighten us on that.
Who fell on Steph's hand, right?
Yeah, who fell on Steph's hand. So that offseason, the Warriors, who they signed, like Glenn Robinson, right? Glenn Robinson the third. So you could say Kyle Anderson's like a better version of that. They got Alec Burks. Okay, so Buddy Hield is a slightly better version of that. DeAnthony Melton's a slightly better version of who? Brad Wanamaker? Actually, maybe that's an insult to DeAnthony Melton.
Aaron Baines.
Thank you. Yeah, where's he now? Is he still playing?
No, but I don't know if he's still playing. The first person said that big Australian guy, and now people are saying Aaron Baines.
I think Eric Baines was the one going through that crazy health crisis where he's trying to come back. Anyways, the point is, so this offseason so far, it's a lot of weird pieces that it almost feels like the Warriors are just getting what they can grab. But and I'll turn it to you, man. The Warriors could be set up for a huge trade. What are you thinking? What are you hearing? I'll share my thoughts. But what are you thinking, man?
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, whether it's Brandon Ingram or Lauri Markkanen or DeMar DeRozan, somebody's suggesting DeRozan. I think DeRozan would be awesome. I mean, he's a LA guy, so he probably wants to be in LA. But he might want to be in California, and he's an awesome mid-range player. I mean, if you're really looking for a true second dominant scorer, you got Steph from three, and you have DeRozan in the intermediate area. I mean, he's one of the great mid-range shooters of the last 20 years, really, I think. So I like DeRozan, but DeRozan's 33, 34. And, that's a little on the older side. I like the idea of, here we go. We got Eddie who says, Larry, are you giving up Kuminga for Lauri Markkanen? That's the bottom line question. If he insists on Jonathan Kuminga, caution, Ainge does not lose trades. I think what's pretty clear here is that the Warriors do what Joe Lacob wants them to do, and Joe is smart enough to know that Kuminga's talent is not something that smart people give up on. I mean, this guy has improved dramatically from 19. He's 21. You're going to trade this guy at 21? Jonathan Kuminga might have the best NBA body of anybody in the entire league. You might be looking at a guy who plays for the next 15 years somewhere. I mean, he's going to play a long time. So,
yeah. So
if you trade him at 21, just get ready for, being burned on the back end. I mean, I like Lauri Markkanen. Don't get me wrong. I like him. But if you look at his basketball card, it's not that impressive as far as, the last couple of years have been impressive in Utah. Yeah. But, as far as before that, I mean, this guy went for 15 a game, 18 a game, 14 a game, 13 a game, 14 a game. Then he goes to Utah and he scores 25.6 a game and 23.2 a game. And their teams don't win. Yeah. Their teams didn't win. So it's like he's a career 18 points a game guy, 5.9 or 7.3 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists per game. He's not really a shot blocker, 0.5 shot blocks per game, 0.7 steals per game. He does stretch the floor. He is a big, skilled player who would be a really nice player to have. I guess I would move Kuminga for him because he is an two-time All-Star who's 27, and he's a 7-footer. He's really a good player. But I wouldn't move Kuminga. We had this discussion. Would you move him for LeBron? Hell no. Would you move him for Jimmy Butler? Hell no. Would you move him for Mikal Bridges? Hell no. There was all kinds of guys that he was rumored to be traded for, and they were all older players. And it's like, I don't want to trade 21-year-old Kuminga for anybody who's 33 or older. But for Markkanen, who's 27, I would consider doing it. But from what I'm hearing, the Warriors trade would not be about Kuminga, that the Warriors trade for Markkanen, and I looked it up on the trade machine. This works. It would be Gary Payton, Moses Moody, Brandon Pajemski, and a bunch of picks. So, Markkanen's only 1 year from free agency. So, what happens if you gave I mean, Moody was a number one pick, and Podziemski was a number one pick. So if you trade 3 number ones and those 3 guys, you've essentially traded 5 number one picks and Gary Payton for Lauri Markkanen. And still, that's probably about a fair trade. But if it's 5 number one picks, then you're trading 7 because Moody and Podziemski also were number one picks. That's too much. Even if you're not moving Kuminga, you can't move. I'm not moving 7 number one picks for Lauri Markkanen. I like Lauri Markkanen. I think he's good. I definitely think he'd be a great player to add. He is the player that I would try to get, but I'm not trading 7 first-round picks for Lauri Markkanen.
It's a lot. Now, we know how Danny H works, right? He's going to ask for the house. And now you asked the first part. I heard 2 questions there I'll try to answer. First is, would you trade Kuminga for Lauri Markkanen? Me personally, right. No. And for exactly what you said. Lauri Markkanen, I feel like is a little overinflated in terms of value right now. People think he's better than he really is. Not to say that he's a bad player, not to say I would hate him on the Warriors. I personally, though, would not give up Kuminga for him. Douglas Mikes in the chat, for example, wrote, he calls Kuminga's fans cultists, which I don't understand, given statistically Kuminga is exceptional, one of the best players on the Warriors last year. But if he has a bad year, will you admit it? Yeah, of course, I'll admit that. And I'm not a Kuminga fanboy. I literally just love the kid because I think he's going to be something special. With that said, my source told me this and we heard from Ramona Shelburne, first of all, confirmed that Kuminga was not going to be included in a Paul George trade. So she clarified that, which is good news because it shows that the Warriors had some common sense there.
I mean, let's get 34-year-old Paul George for 21-year-old Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, that would have been stupid.
Now, with that said, my source also told me that if this trade does happen, and make no mistake, the Warriors are trying to make this happen. That is about as close to a fact as I can tell you, is that they are talking to the Jazz. They want Lauri Markkanen, but if this trade is going to happen, the Jazz want Kuminga. And so if this trade is going to go down, Kuminga is going to go to the Jazz.
But then what else would be in the trade?
I don't know. That part I don't know. I imagine it's going to be
I don't want to trade Kuminga and Pods and Moody and
Agreed.
All those number ones. I mean, it's just too much. It's just too much. I'd rather stay with what they got.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. So
the other thing that I'm hearing about this trade, just to inject this real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so according to Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, he says Utah would only be willing to deal away Markkanen in exchange for a package similar to the one the Knicks sent to the Nets to acquire Mikal Bridges. The Knicks sent 5 first-round picks and an unprotected pick swap. The Warriors and Spurs have a lot of interest. So do the Kings and T-Wolves. The Kings' issue is they are reluctant to put Keegan Murray on the table in the trade talks. The T-Wolves, and so the Kings may shift to Brandon Ingram and go after Ingram instead.
Correct. I've heard that.
As for the Wolves, they're operating over the second apron. They barely have any future draft capital available, so it's hard to envision a way for them to make a serious play for Markkanen.
The Chicago Bulls, is that what you said?
The Wolves.
Oh, the Wolves. Okay.
The T-Wolves. So the T-Wolves want him, but probably can't get him. The Kings want him, but don't want to move Keegan Murray. The Spurs want him, and the Spurs have salaries that would match. But then the question is, are the Spurs going to be able to re-sign him in a year? Because he's a free agent at the end of the year. And are they going to be able to keep him in San Antonio beyond this year? So I think that's a concern. And then the Warriors obviously want him, and it's just a matter of what's the package going to be. I think, Kuminga, you got to have 18 million go back. So you got to make that work. Mm-hmm. So does that mean Looney? Does that mean Peyton?
GP. My guess is GP2's on the block simply because, like, the DeAnthony Melton signing to me meant GP2's gone. Like that's the impression I got. They're very similar. DeAnthony Melton makes up largely for the what you lose in GP2 with defense. Because that's the impression I'm getting, is that GP2 is out the door. That would be my.
So he makes about $9 million. So you could take the $9 million of GP2 and Kuminga, who makes what, 7 or 8?
Or 7 or 8, maybe it's that, somewhere in that range, yeah.
And then maybe throw Guy Santos in there or something.
You don't have to, because it only has to match up to 75%. So I think those
that
two
works.
That would be enough. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, I would consider doing
Wiggins.
that.
I'm sorry. And then someone in the chat brings up like Wiggins is 100% of the trade block.
But the Wiggins makes 26. Wiggins makes more. In that scenario, you'd have to grow the
more
deal
back, right?
You'd have to grow the deal to a bigger deal if you throw Wiggins in there. Because then let's just say they wanted Wiggins and Kuminga. Then you're talking about $32 million going back, and they have $18 million, in Markkanen. So the Jazz would have to throw in, I don't know, who's the mercurial point guard that makes about $13 million a year there.
Jordan Clarkson's not a point. Oh, is it Jordan Clarkson or Taylor Horton Tucker?
I'm thinking of Colin Sexton.
I mean, yeah,
Colin Sexton makes $13 million. So okay, I mean, you could do a deal involving Colin Sexton if you wanted to take Sexton back. But I mean, I like the idea of going for Markkanen. The other thing that was thrown out, and I couldn't find it here, but what is Durant's situation? Because I would not. There's a lot of people speculating that the Warriors, are going to have some major, tack on. I mean, if they could somehow trade, for Markkanen and somehow convince KD to come back, now you got a shot.
I don't think KD's come to the Warriors. That would be
where is KD going to go though?
Nowhere. I think he's going to stay with Phoenix, and if he goes anywhere, my guess would be Houston. Houston is primed to trade for him. They want him. They have all those picks to give back to Phoenix. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say Houston, but I don't think the Warriors. That would truly shock me if KD ends up with the Warriors. It just doesn't make sense. Like the asking price is going to be too high. You're getting back a 36-year-old player on the tail end of his career. It would blow my mind if that deal somehow happened. I would guess Houston.
Yeah. So, I mean, once again, I mean, the Warriors situation, but the Warriors right now, you look at their roster, you got to think something significant is coming.
There's also
they seem a little unbalanced.
You're 100% right. It's not over yet. They've got way too many wings. First of all, they have like 8 or 9 wings right now on the roster. There's a massive logjam there. These moves do seem to lead toward another move, and we don't know what that move is going to be. Keep your eyes on Portland as well as a trade partner, because they drafted his center, and they've got Time Lord on their roster. They've got DeAndre Ayton on their roster. I can't imagine them keeping both those guys. I'm not sitting here advocating for either one of them on the Warriors, but that is another piece to keep an eye on, because Portland will make a deal. And as a consolation prize, if the Warriors strike out for Lauri Markkanen, they're going to go for someone.
Who do you want? You want Ayton?
That's a tough one.
You want DeAndre Ayton?
I'd almost prefer Time Lord, even though he's got the health issues.
They just drafted Donovan Clingan from UConn.
Exactly.
Big man. They have Jeremy Grant.
And then Jeremy Grant's available. But he's another wing. I mean, and he's got that big deal. I almost feel like if the Warriors were interested in Jeremy Grant, they would be interested in Zach LaVine. Those two fit.
They're shopping Robert Williams.
That's the Time Lord. Yeah, that's the guy who I would probably advocate for.
11.5 mil.
Injury prone, but if you can get the Rick Celebrini treatment, and if you can get his health right, that's a fantastic pickup for the Warriors if you end up with Time Lord. But I don't know.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the other thing, I mean, did the Warriors get anybody at all on their summer league team? I was looking at their summer league roster. And I thought they have a Euro that's pretty good from Serbia.
You would be the expert on that. You're much more in tune with
Montas Jesovicius or something like that.
Like people got excited for a brief moment about Kevin Knox, a former number 10 pick, and then
he's on the summer league team.
But it turns out he's not going to play. He has some injury, and then Jerome Robinson was another former lottery. Like just because someone's a former lottery pick does not curb the excitement for former lottery picks if they end up on a Warriors Summer League roster. It does not mean they're magically going to be good players. But I don't know. The Euro guy, you tell me, man. I'm not an expert on scouting.
I mean, I watched some film of the guy. He's a 6'6" guy who looks pretty skilled. His name's Montas. I forget that's his first name.
Dude, by the way, Yada Mean brings up a great point. We haven't even talked about this. I love the topic, which is the Warriors solved their assistant coach crisis. This was good. The Warriors, yes, this was a massive day. I mean, it goes to show how big of a day the Warriors had yesterday. We haven't even talked about Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse coming in as assistant coaches. Terry Stotts is the new lead assistant coach. He takes the number 2 spot. Jerry Stackhouse, who's been coaching in the G League. Early indications are he's great at developing talent. He comes into the coaching spot, onto the coaching
Stackhouse
staff.
there to develop Kuminga?
Possibly, and or Moody, and or Pajemski, and or Trace Jackson Davis, anyone else. Lindy Waters could be a number one. I don't know if he needs development or not, but the best piece of news from all this wasn't that they got Terry Stotts, so I think he's an excellent assistant. It isn't that they got Jerry Stackhouse, former terrific player. Hopefully he's a good coach. It's the fact that Bruce Frazier, a.k.a. Q, chill dude. He's a surfer. Him and I have talked waves behind the scenes.
Gray-haired guy, salt and pepper with the beard, always shooting with Steph.
Exactly. Exactly. That's, I think, what people know of him the best is that he's Stephen Curry's shooting coach. He's the guy that's always getting the rebounds for Steph when he's shooting.
He must be the greatest coach of all time because Steph has done very well as a shooter.
Well, the crazy. So Bruce Frazier was Steve Kerr's teammate in Arizona, right? That's how they became friends. And then he was out of basketball for
Steph couldn't shoot at all until he met this guy.
But so Bruce Frazier, and this is Steve Kerr, man. He brings Bruce Frazier to Phoenix when Steve Kerr was the GM there. That's how Bruce Frazier even got into the NBA, right? I think he was working in Hollywood or something after college. So Steve Kerr hooks him up there, hooks Bruce Frazier up again when he's the Warriors assistant. And then this was the symbolic of the complete failure of the last 2 years, or at least last year after Mike Brown left. You had Bruce Frazier sitting next to Steve Kerr as the number one assistant. That should never have happened. Again, no disrespect to Bruce Frazier, but he is not does not have coaching acumen. He's just Steve Kerr's buddy.
They had the other guy though. They had the other guy who just bailed.
Kenny Atkinson, correct.
Kenny Atkinson.
But the reason why I bring up Bruce Frazier is relegated to the second row of the assistant coaches this coming year. He is not even going to be sitting in the front row. So
I'm in the back row.
So kudos to whoever made that happen. I'm elated at the fact that I feel like the Warriors are finally putting their foot down on Kerr and kind of telling him, dude, okay, we've tried it your way. It's not working. You're going to be the coach. Let us make the decisions again. But So your thoughts on that, Larry? Because I was thrilled over that news, but that's me.
Coaches, just the fact that there is a second row just is ridiculous.
It's absurd.
Seriously.
It's absurd.
What happened to there was one coach?
Which was a thing. Larry,
I would love to see. That would be the coolest thing ever to see a team with one coach, with nobody else.
But that's how it used to be, right?
I know. That's the way it was. One coach. Now it's like
10.
There's not enough seats to sit courtside anymore because they got 9 coaches.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. The other thing is this ridiculousness where we don't wear suits anymore. We all wear matching polos.
I don't like that either.
It's like, do they have to match?
I want suits back on the side. I want suits on the court, man. I don't like the tracksuit.
Somebody couldn't pick a silver polo. Another guy pick a navy. Guys, didn't you get the memo? We're all wearing the navy. We're all wearing black polos. It's a weird thing. There's too many coaches. By the way, Warrior Media says Montas Rubistavicius is the guy you guys were talking about. He's a 6'6", 6'7", somewhat ground-bound Euro, but the guy can shoot it. Go YouTube him and look at his highlights. The guy can shoot the basketball.
Good.
We'll see. We'll see what he looks like this summer. It's a players league, so I really don't care about Stackhouse or Stotts. But Stotts, is Stotts connected to anybody in Portland that you think might want to play for the Warriors because of Stotts?
Not that I can think of.
Because you mentioned team, Portland.
That team, Terry Stotts left 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That team has gone through a complete recycle since then.
But I gotta think that there's a significant move coming, because otherwise it's like, really, you're going for Buddy Hield and slow-mo and have any of the offseason moves, whether the big man from Boston College or let's just assume they get Buddy Hield, let's assume they do any. Are you excited by any of their moves? I'm not.
No. Look.
I guess Hield a little bit, but that's it. I mean,
and look, I know you don't like Kyle Anderson. I think the Kyle Anderson pickup is good. I don't like. I'm not hating on it. Again, nothing exciting about it. But for a Warriors team that was literally the smallest in the NBA last year, and who until yesterday their only big moves were Lindy Waters and DeAnthony Melton, 6'6" and 6'3". I wasn't happy until yesterday. So even though Kyle Anderson is slow-mo, which is a hilarious nickname because for some reason he does look like he's moving slow in the court. He does. I don't get the optics of it, but it fits. He's 6'9", man, and he's not a bad player. He's a terrific defender. He's a terrific switch defender. Like Kyle Anderson is someone who could literally guard 1 through 5. Good, not great offensive player. So for just the fact that they got a bigger guy who's at least shown that he's competent, he's not going to be making mistakes out there. I'm happy with the Kyle Anderson move. Buddy Hield, if he can make his shot, I'm excited about that. And side note, people have been asking, like, who are the Warriors giving up for Buddy Hield? The trade
second-round pick, from what I heard.
Well, maybe, but they got a trade exception in the Klay Thompson sign and trade, and they didn't use
they didn't use that for slow-mo.
They used some of it for slow-mo, not all. So they could use like the rest of it for Buddy Hield, and then if Philly's insisting on a pick, I guess you could throw one of those second rounders, I guess, but you don't have to give up much. No, so I don't think the Warriors are giving up anything really. I mean, outside of maybe a second-round pick. Yeah,
so to me, it makes sense. John Holmes, said, seriously, why would I trade 5 number ones, Kuminga, Pods, Moody, and picks for a guy who gives us 22? Kuminga makes 22 this year or next year. Seems nuts. Tell Ainge pound sand. It does seem like too high of a price for Markkanen. I mean, it's like
agreed.
I don't like Markkanen too, but I don't want him. It's just too high of a price. I mean, if you go Pods, Moody, Payton, and picks, I'm there. And I think that's a fair price. I think Pods is a good young guard. I think Moody's a good young small forward. If you got, let's say, 3 ones, Pods, Moody, and Payton for Markkanen, I think that makes sense. And then you get to keep Kuminga. I think that makes sense. Exo Wonder says nobody want Zach LaVine at $50 million for the next 3 years.
She's right, and I haven't checked your email yet.
Turned down a trade for Zach LaVine. It was supposed to be Chris Paul and Wiggins for LaVine, and they turned that down because what? Because that was going to screw up their cap.
Well, first of all, it was good. It was the speculation is that the Bulls were willing to give up LaVine for Wiggins and or Chris Paul. And Exo Wonder, I promise I will read your email and get back to you at some point. I promise. I'm horrible with emails, but I will read it. And so, the basically the gist of Zach LaVine is his value is dead. If the Warriors won't trade Wiggins and or Chris Paul for him, is anyone going to give up anything? So I think the Bulls are just stuck with the guy. I didn't think he was that toxic, but he is. Apparently he is. No one wants him. Yeah. That's
VLK Ali Brada. VL Cali Brada.
VL Cali Brada. Yo, brah, Cali.
Gotcha. He says Larry's hating today. I'm not excited about these pickups, but they are solid.
I don't hear you hating. I mean, you're not excited about.
I don't like slow mo.
I
don't. I like watching. I don't know, athletes, and he shoots the ball like a 4th grader.
He's also got the hair thing going, the Derek White had that Moses Moody's dealing with too. You just got to move on, man. You got to get those Clippers and just move on, dude. Yeah, it's not a good look.
We got this one. $1 out of 15 cents is give him Looney for Hield. What's up with Looney? Where's Looney going to be?
Great question. I don't. He might not go anywhere. I don't know. He could be an asset to match salaries for a trade. He might just be back with the team. I have no clue what's going to happen with Looney.
What do you think of this one? Deliver you truth. It says it should be a crime not to let Andrew Wiggins play in the Olympics. His own mother was an Olympian. Wiggins is better than Kobe. What? Wiggins is better than Kobe.
Well, that part makes no damn sense. But he's right about
ridiculous. No, he's not right. He's wrong. This is a guy who
the first 2 parts. No, I said the third part he's wrong, but the first 2 parts he's right.
No, but it's not a crime not to let him play for Team Canada. You're trying to trade him. He's an asset. If he gets hurt, you can't trade him.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, don't you want to trade Wiggins? I would like bye Wiggins. Bye. I don't want to see Wiggins anymore. I'm done with Wiggins.
You're right. But a lot of issues in this world are based off perspective, right? Like how you see it. And Team Canada Their perspective is they were about to have Andrew Wiggins on their roster. They're aiming for their first. I don't think they've been in the Olympics since 2000, and they have a chance to get gold. I mean, they have a damn good team. I don't think they're going to.
And as Americans, we care about that because of what?
I'm not saying we should care or we do care, but Team Canada, the fact that the head coach,
Connor McDavid's fired up, but what does that do for me?
But if you're Team Canada and the head coach of Team USA literally just told your team you can't have Andrew Wiggins, who's going to be one of your best players, you'd be pissed, right? You would not be pissed if you're Team Canada? That's the
but I mean, it's up to Wiggins to get clarification or clearance from the team that's paying him hundreds of millions of dollars ahead of time, and he didn't do it. So it's on him.
Which I reported. The only person who's reported that, by the way. Yeah, you're right.
It's on him. I mean, you want to get clearance, and get clearance. Jeff Ferrari says trade Kuminga, Wiggins, and 2 picks for Markkanen. Lauri can tell Utah that he will not resign to hopefully inspire Utah to pull the trigger as opposed to losing Lauri for nothing next year. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're the Utah Jazz. This guy's walking. There's no doubt. And who has signed big money long-term to stay in Utah? I mean, it's a tough sell. So he's probably leaving at the end of the year. So make a good deal, but don't give away the house. I guess here's my question. Who's more important to the Warriors winning in the future? Podziemski or Kuminga? Now, I know Kuminga's the better player, better athlete, but if you think that Kuminga isn't he hasn't played a significant role in the playoffs. He's been benched and banished and, deemed too raw and this and that. Now he's improving and he's only 21, but he doesn't have the basketball feel, let's say, of a Pods. But Pods doesn't have the athleticism of Kuminga.
I would disagree with the feel part of it. I think Kuminga has excellent feel for the game.
Really?
Okay. Pods is just a better shooter and a slightly better ball handler.
They haven't really trusted Kuminga as much as you would think.
But again, that's based off Steve Kerr. And if you're trusting his decision making, that's you. I don't. Steve Kerr has lost my faith in terms of decision making for personnel. He's still a great coach when it comes to running an offensive system, but he has proven to me he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it in terms of who are the best players on the planet. He's inherited tremendous talent. He's never shown that when it comes to his own decision-making skills that he knows who's good and who isn't. So that's based off Steve Kerr's decision-making, and that's where I split.
Jeff Ferrari says sign Hield, trade for Markkanen, acquire a defensive player, a wing or a big, and we're true contenders. I'll tell you the guy that I think would be a sleeper pickup. The Wizards drafted this big man from a Euro big man named Tristan Vukovic. And he only played a little bit of the year last year with the Wizards, but he looked good in the period of time that he did play. And the guy has got a beautiful shot. That's the guy I'd try to get because you could probably get him for did they spend their mid-level and mini mid-level? Are they
so they spent the mid-level exception on D'Anthony Melton. Okay. They still have the biannual, which is approximately $5 million. So they do still have that for a free agent. And I hope they use it. I really hope they do, man.
I'd love to see him use it on Vukovic. I know you haven't seen Vukovic, but I would encourage anybody, look up Tristan Vukovic for the Wizards. And he's a 7-footer who's a Euro. So he's kind of soft, but he's got a beautiful shot. I mean, an unbelievable shot. And if you really look at how the Warriors got here to begin with, they drafted Steph. They drafted Klay. They drafted Draymond. They drafted Barnes. They drafted Festus. All these guys were 20, 21. I think maybe Green might have been 22. That's where they got these guys initially. So to me, I'd go after Vukovic, who's also 21, who's got a lot of upside potential. I mean, if you want to go get an asset that really appreciates, you got to get a player before he kind of becomes who he is.
Yeah.
And Vukovic, I think, is going to be a very good rotation shooting big man for whatever team over the next 3 or 4 seasons. And right now he's totally gettable because they made him a free agent. They, bought him out or whatever it was. And he's out there. So Tristan Vukovic, I mean, just go watch the guy. You can see him shoot the ball.
And I've seen him. I agree with you. He's played in the NBA, right? I mean, he
played like the last, I think he played March, and he had like 14 and 8 in one game. I mean, it wasn't like he did nothing. He hasn't played a lot, but he has played a little. Let's see. Mark Graves says we haven't seen Kuminga ceiling. We have seen Pod ceiling. I don't know about that.
No. And just to add to that, first of all, both these players are 21. All right. Both these, they're 3 months apart. Pajemski is the youngest player on the team. Kuminga is the second youngest. These two guys like each other. I don't know if you saw those clips. They're hanging out this summer. They're going to soccer games together. Pajemski and Kuminga. These two could be the future of the Warriors. I don't hate the idea. I also don't like the here's the thing with Pajemski. He shot 43.8% from deep in college just 2 years ago. And your outside shot is one of the last things that develops as an NBA player, right? Like players, like even Stephen Curry didn't have the greatest rookie season as a shooter. The last month of the season, Pajemski shot, I think, 60% from deep. And this is a sample size of like, I think 12 games, 14 games. Pajemski, the moment that outside shot catches up with him, where he's starting to hit over 40% of his threes, that's when we could start judging Pajemski. And that's when Dub Nation could get excited about these young pieces. I also think Kuminga is going to develop his outside shot. It's worth noting Kuminga was, I think, a third on the team in field goal percentage. He's an efficient scorer. His three-point shot's the only part of his game that I agree warrants criticism, because he shot, I think, 34% from there last year, or maybe 32. But that's coming along, man. I'm not worried about Kuminga's game in terms of his shot. I'm with you, Larry. I think those two could be your core. And I hope they don't give Kuminga up.
Okay, so let's just say they can get Markkanen and not move Kuminga. Let's say they can do it. Let's say they can do it. They can,
man. Yeah.
They get him. They get Markkanen. They give up Moses Moody. They give up Pajemski. They give up Gary Payton, and they give up 3 number ones. They get Markkanen. All right, so now you've added Buddy Hield, let's say. You've added Slow-Mo. You've added a couple guys out of the draft. You've added Markkanen, but you still have Wiggins. What are they going to do with Wiggins? What are they – I mean, where is Wiggins going to go? Because Wiggins needs to go. I mean, he absolutely needs to go. I'd almost be willing to take anybody in return. I mean, I'd take Ben Simmons in return for Wiggins.
Now you're talking my language, Larry. That's what I've been saying for a year. Like,
just take Ben Simmons.
Well, no, just move on from Wiggins, man. You got to just move on from that contract. You got to, and he's still a crutch, right?
And get somebody that find the Wiggins match. I mean, I've heard people say, "Well, you're going to have to attach first round picks." Not if you find the player in the league that's Wiggins as well. And to me, that's Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons makes a ton of cash, but he's got one. See, here's the thing: you trade Wiggins,
right? You're right.
If you trade Wiggins for Ben Simmons, and first of all, there's a lot of people going, Krueg's crazy. And I get it, because you guys all hate Ben Simmons right now. And Simmons has been...
I follow you, Larry. I get it.
Ben Simmons has been kind of a zero. But Ben Simmons has 1 year left at $40 million, let's say. Wiggins has like 3 years left. And so you could get out from some of that money if you could, if you could make the move. And let me see, I did this in the trade machine because I wanted to see if it actually worked before I actually brought
it wouldn't work. You'd have to include like either and again, I'm basing this because Simmons
you'd have to include like Kevon Looney or something.
Exactly, or GP2, because you have to match within 75% of the two salaries. So
so you'd have to throw somebody else in there. But I would, Wiggins and one of those guys, Wiggins and Looney. For Ben Simmons, would you do that?
Well, following your logic, which is just to get off of Wiggins' contract, and Ben Simmons is on the final year of his deal. So in theory, you could bring him in, you could just cut him if you want, or you could try and trade him for something else. Or you just let that contract expire. But I follow your logic because Wiggins has 3 years left on his deal. Yeah. And he's an albatross, man. He's
and you could get out from under Simmons after 1 year. The other thing is like, if you had Ben Simmons, what would you want to have around him? I'd want to have,
shooters.
To me, the guy is absolutely, he's a guy that has to be put on a team that fits around his skills. What is Ben Simmons? I think Ben Simmons is a 6'10" point guard. And if you have Steph Curry, now you got a perimeter shooter. If you got Steph Curry and Buddy Hield, now you got two. If you got that guy Waters, looks like he can shoot it from deep. If they have Markkanen, he can shoot it from deep. I would like to see Wiggins for Simmons and then just put Simmons at the point, play Steph off the ball a bit more, and let Simmons just run the point and find perimeter shooters, drive in and dunk it, or kick it out to any number of these perimeter shooters. I'd rather see that than watch more of Wiggins. I mean, I know Simmons can't shoot. I know he's hiding on the floor. I know he's mentally, crushed by his lack of shooting, but don't make him a shooter. I mean, surround him with a bunch of shooters and let him drive.
I'm 100% with you. And honestly, man, I've been
it's only 26 or 27.
I brought this up before, and most people hate the idea of Ben Simmons coming to the Warriors, but I'm with you. Logically, given the expiring deal, given his size and his skill set, I wouldn't hate it, man. And reclamation projects have come to the Warriors and succeeded. Andrew Wiggins is the perfect example of that. It's not a permanent thing, but they got a title for 1 year, man. I mean, that's incredible. I would not hate that idea, man. I'm totally with you. And I'm totally with you as well that there is another move coming. The way this Warriors team is currently constructed. I mean, the entire reason why Wiggins was pulled from Team Canada was because of that Paul George trade. I mean, the Warriors thought Wiggins was gone. They thought that Paul George trade was greenlit, and then the Clippers last minute pulled the rug, but they thought Wiggins was gone. And they're clearly including him in trade discussions. Otherwise, he would be playing for Team Canada. So, yeah, man, he'll probably go, and I hope it happens soon. I'm with you.
I threw out first of all, Wiggins makes a boatload of cash. So he's not an easy guy to trade because there's only so many guys who make that much money. He makes $26 million. So you got to find a pretty significant player coming back. I suggest Ben Simmons. If it's not Simmons, is there anybody else that you can think of that
for Wiggins?
Levine. Can they group something to trade Wiggins for Levine? Because it sounded like they wanted Wiggins and Paul for Levine. But the Warriors said no.
The Warriors don't want Zach LaVine. I think that's a dead issue. Maybe like a Jeremy Grant. This is why I looked to Portland, because I feel like they could be a potential trade partner. You could bring back a Robert Williams, aka Time Lord, who's injury prone. Maybe and Portland is deep now at the center position. I don't know, man. That's going to take some ingenuity, and this is where Mike Dunleavy Jr. is facing a challenge to move on from that Wiggins contract. Wiggins' issue is also in the same vein as, Larry, I know you've at least read the book Moneyball. A fantastic book. I read it too. Yeah. But in the movie, there's that great scene of Brad Pitt's character, and he's playing the infamous GM, Billy Beane, and he's having the discussion with the manager. Was it Art Howe?
Right. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Correct. Where they were having the argument about Hatterberg and David Justice. And
no, it's Hatterberg versus Carlos Pena.
Thank you.
And he's like, we want Hattie at first, but we have Pena.
No, you don't, because he traded him, right?
No, Art, you're going to have to play Hatterberg at first tonight. No, Billy, I'm going to play Pena. Well, no, Art, you can't play Pena. He's now a member of the Tigers. He's like, you traded Pena? And he's like, yeah, and Hilges and Menachino and blankety blank or Tam are going down, and we're trading Jeremy Giambi. I just saw it. It was on the other night.
And that needs to be the same mentality that the Warriors take. That is a huge reason why Klay Thompson was traded. And that needs to be the same mentality with Wiggins, because as long as Wiggins is on the roster, Kerr's going to play him. And so that he needs to go. He needs to go, plain and simple.
Eddie 757 says 95.7 The Game had a Utah reporter that indicated that Lauri Markkanen loves Salt Lake City. He does not drink. He has a family. Salt Lake seems like his kind of place. He's also from Finland. Snow is his bag, baby.
By the way, Larry, sorry to interrupt Eddie 757, but is East Coast bias really Steve Kerr in our chat? Is like Steve Kerr in our chat? I swear to God.
Where is he?
East Coast bias is either Steve Kerr or his wife, who, by the way, side note, is on Threads, and she's an interesting character, man. She's not afraid to express opinions.
East Coast bias said Wiggs may stay. He's their best perimeter defender outside of GP2, and unlike JK.
Oh, he's been spreading Kerr propaganda in your chat all morning. Our chat, I apologize. And not to mention, it could also be not Nicholas Kerr. It also could be Nicholas Kerr in the chat. Side note, Larry, why would you name your son if your last name is Kerr? Why would you name your son Nicholas?
Nicholas Kerr? Why?
Yes.
What's wrong with Nick Kerr?
You do know there's a reason why the broadcasters never ever say that. Don't say his name like that again, please. I just don't want you to get in trouble. It's
Nicholas Kerr.
Nicholas Kerr. Yeah, don't ever say but
I gotcha.
It's why? Like, why would you do that?
My mom had a cousin, and I think her last name was Lally.
Yeah.
Or no. Her first name was Sally, and she married a man named Bart Lally.
Oh.
So she became Sally Lally. I'm not even joking.
Oh my God.
I actually know somebody as well, who named their son Ron, and their last name was McDonald. I swear. And he went by Ron, because how could you go by Ronald McDonald, right? That's not good. So you got to go.
Sorry. East Coast bias is neither. He just knows more about basketball than me. I stand corrected. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Next time I'm hosting, I'll put the link. Come and join me, please. All right, and we can have a
doesn't
fun
know more hoops than you. So. Justin Rudder says Ayton for Wiggins. Do you want Ayton?
I would happily do that. Sign me up easily.
But Ayton seems like he plays only when he wants to.
I'd still do it because at least with Ayton, you're getting 7 feet.
If Simmons is acquired, I'll be a Mavs fan. Why? Just because the guy can't shoot?
Yeah, Vic, what's going on? Why? Yeah, I agree.
East Coast bias, Wiggs may stay. I don't know. I mean, I hope Wiggs doesn't stay.
He knows more about ball, so maybe he's right. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Overall, this guy says Ayton is the center version of Wiggs.
I'd still take that, though. At least you're getting a 7-footer. Karina
Sims, Aaron Gordon for Wiggins. Oh, I'd do that in a freaking heartbeat. Are you kidding me? Aaron Gordon went to Midi. He's a local guy. I think Joe would love have Aaron Gordon.
I'm just tripping out because there's no why would Denver ever even think about doing that? Like
Well, exactly. I mean, why would they? Unless they've who's their other power forward? Maybe they have another power forward. I'd have to really. Douglas Mike says it's wild to hear some people want Simmons. It's not that I want Simmons. It's just that I don't want Wiggins anymore, and I'd be willing to take Simmons back because Simmons is a $40 million expirer. Plus, I'm intrigued by what Ben Simmons playing the point would actually look like. Because nobody ever puts him at point. He's always been on this team where he's got to shoot. Well, if you put him around a team that has Steph and all these perimeter shooters, I mean, what the heck? All he's got to do is drive, penetrate, and kick it. He's 6'10". And if they foul him, I mean, I'll say this too. It's like if you really are light years ahead of the rest of the basketball world, like Joe Lacob is, then you probably have some free throw coach. I mean, you do regular stuff with Rick. What has Rick ever talked about? What's wrong with Simmons shooting from the free throw line, and what isn't the Warriors ought to get Rick and Simmons together?
Well, the problem is Rick will, and Rick's infamous.
Rick's going to make him shoot an underhand.
Exactly, and I mean,
nobody wants to do that because you look stupid.
And the most famous story is the Lakers brought Rick Barry in. This was very early in Shaquille O'Neal's days when
Shaq said he'd rather miss, right?
And Jerry West first went, soon after Jerry West traded for Shaquille O'Neal, and they brought Rick Barry in to coach him with underhanded free throws. And like you said, Shaq looked at that and was like, "I'd rather miss than look like that." Just crazy.
But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you can make 90% of your free throws, you're a much more valuable player.
Yes.
And that's going to play in the fourth quarter of games. So that's the one thing. Isn't that kid that they just got, what's his name, Waters? Isn't he supposedly close to a 90% free throw shooter?
Lindy Waters. He's got a really sweet stroke, man.
He does. What is he? Is he a 1? Is he a 2? What do you think of that move? Is he going to play?
He's probably. I mean, why make that move if he isn't? I mean, he's got a guaranteed spot on the roster. Look, his shooting stroke is really nice. He's 6'6", so he's not tiny. Like, it's easy to forget. I don't understand why people forget that size is vitally, fundamentally important in basketball. Like, it's one of the key variables to success in basketball, size. And for some reason, like, people forget that. So I'll take size all day, every day. If that's the decision between two players. What was your question again? I'm so sorry, man. I didn't mean to. Lindy Waters.
Yeah, so is Lindy Waters a 1 or a 2? Because I've seen him listed as a point.
He's a 2, but he probably can handle the ball well enough to play the 1. Lindy Waters likely means Lester Quinones is gone. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any thoughts on that, or have any feelings?
Well, he's young and athletic and needs an opportunity. I was surprised that they want to get younger, or they seem like they want to get younger in certain spots, but then they didn't want to give him a shot. He's been on their bench. I'm not really sure.
Well, he's gone. Lester Quinones
he's not there anymore.
So that's what Lindy Waters represented, is Lester Quinones. His roster spot's been replaced by Lindy Waters. And again, you're getting more size. If you watch the highlight videos of Lindy Waters, I'm going to bring on an OKC. This is a great name for a podcast, by the way. This guy, Dylan, he hosts a podcast as part of the Believe Network. It's called Topic Thunder. Bravo for the name. That's phenomenal. And he's going to come on and do a breakdown in the near future on Lindy Waters, because I don't know much about him. I don't know who does know much about him. So Dylan of Topic Thunder is going to come on Golden Day soon and enlighten Dub Nation and the world on Lindy Waters and what he brings to the table. But he does mean Lester Quinones is no longer a part of the Warriors, which is disappointing to me. I like Lester. When you hear Mike Dunleavy Jr. and his rhetoric when it comes to building from within, that they like developing players. Well, Lester Quinones was a perfect example of that. But you decided not to bring him back so you could trade for Lindy Waters. So he better be good, man, because I like Quinones.
I'll tell you, who I would like to get back for Wiggins if I could is Cam Johnson. I think Cam Johnson, the Nets are rebuilding. If you threw a number 1 at them, you could probably flip salaries.
You give up Kuminga for him, though? Is that what you said? Okay, who'd you say?
No, Wiggins. I'd trade Wiggins and a pick to the Nets for Cam Johnson, because once again, I like the idea of having a bunch of shooters, and Cam Johnson can flat out shoot it. I mean, he is real 6'8". He can play power forward, he can play small forward, and he can really, really shoot the basketball. You have Steph Curry, and Buddy Hield and Cam Johnson. I mean, you literally have a bevy of snipers, from the perimeter, which, that might not be the worst plan either. I don't know if Cam Johnson's gettable, but I know Brooklyn's rebuilding.
He is gettable, and that's why I'm really stoked you brought his name up. I'm a little surprised it took us this long. We've been here for an hour 20. That's awesome. But you're right. Cam Johnson would be fantastic. I'm a fan. I know he didn't have a great performance for Team USA when he was playing for Kerr last year or 2 years ago, whenever that was. But sign me up, man. Yeah. And look, Wiggins will not be enough. Brooklyn is in a rebuild. If you're going to trade Cam Johnson, you're going to have to give up some assets they actually care about. But Wiggins could be included for salary. And then you entice, the move with future firsts with, Moses Moody, I guess. Would you trade Moody for Cam? I mean, you'd have to include somebody to get him, but.
Well, you'd have to know. I mean, Cam makes $20 million. I mean, you're going to have to make, he makes big money. You're going to have to trade somebody like Wiggins, or you're going to have to trade Looney and put Peyton, and picks and that kind of thing. Another guy that I think is kind of underrated is I've always liked, first of all, Philadelphia to me the last couple of years has had some really underrated players. They had Isaiah Joe, who just re-signed with OKC. Isaiah Joe, I loved him at Arkansas. He played for Musselman. The guy had an unbelievable, beautiful shot. I mean, he is another Klay Thompson kind of shooter, but he re-upped. And by the way, Tristan Vukovic has re-upped with the Wizards, so he's no longer available.
There you go.
But another guy that the Sixers have that I think is a damn good player as well is Paul Reed, who's a big man. Yeah, supposedly signed, according to Hoop Rumors, signs are pointing towards Paul Reed being traded or waived rather than returning to the 76ers, according to Keith Pompey of the Philly Inquirer.
He's awesome, by the way. Keith Pompey knows his stuff. So
yeah, I mean, so Pompey added that Philadelphia's had discussions with Haywood Highsmith, who the Warriors also showed some interest in.
Correct.
That's kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind having Paul Reed on my front line. The Warriors and Spurs. Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. But according to Chris Haynes of Bleacher Report, he says the Warriors and the Spurs are the most serious suitors for Markkanen.
Yeah.
Who says Haynes says Golden State's been the most aggressive team in its pursuit of Markkanen. So
yeah, I've heard that too. Like I said, I have a trusted source who told me that if that trade happens, and again, I don't like it, but it's part of the industry and the world that we live in. Kuminga is going to be included in that deal. We'll see what that happens. But
how about Brandon Ingram? I mean, there was a lot of talk early in the offseason that the Warriors are going to go after Brandon Ingram. Would it be easier to land Ingram from New Orleans than Markkanen from the Jazz?
Well, I'd love to know your thoughts on Ingram. I personally like him.
Man, I love him. I think he's great. He's just skinny and he's been hurt a lot.
But
he's young.
The pushback I've heard on the Ingram to Warriors discussions and speculation is that Ingram played for Kerr for Team USA. I think last summer when all this happened, and that Ingram was basically phased out of the rotation by the end of the summer. So I don't know if like that frayed the relationship. I don't know if that means Kerr doesn't like him that much. But I've heard the Team USA experience is why Brandon Ingram will likely not be a target for the Warriors. I would like him. I think he would be a great addition, but that's me.
Another name that's kind of interesting. It sounds like Sacramento doesn't want to move off Keegan Murray. But the Warriors, I guess, were offered a sign and trade from the Lakers for D, and the Lakers offered D'Lo. And the Warriors said no. I didn't want D'Lo back either. I'm glad the Warriors said no to D'Lo.
Hell no. I mean, I feel like that would have been just part one of a second move, but right. No, I don't want D'Angelo Russell on my team. Absolutely not. Hell no.
No, that's a non-starter.
That's
a non-starter. Well, it's going to be interesting. The other thing, did the Warriors pick up the option on Nico Mannion?
They did.
And what does that mean? Are they trying to trade him or
no? They for some reason, I don't understand it, man. Maybe Nico Mannion is playing that well in Italy. But they tendered an offer to him, and all that means is if another team wants to sign him, the Warriors have the right to match the offer. He's basically a restricted free agent. That's all that means. Does that mean he'll play for the Warriors again? I don't know. They were doing this for years with Justinian Jessup, where they kept tendering offers year after year just to prevent him from going to another team. But he kept playing over in Australia for an international club. And they're doing the same thing with Nico Mannion. Nico Mannion, coming out of high school, was one of the top prospects going to college. And then he had a so-so college year. Warriors draft him. He goes overseas, and that's where we're at, man. Like, so the Warriors own his rights, but I don't know if he'll ever play for the Warriors.
I think that we pretty much covered everything.
I think we did.
I'm reading more details about the discontent that Klay Thompson had with Joe Lacob. Supposedly there are multiple stories here that Lacob spearheaded, quote, a cold, mostly uncommunicative approach to Thompson's contract talks in his 3 summers of extension eligibility, a source told Slater. So there you go.
I wonder who that source is. Klay.
Yeah.
Look, that's a very subjective manner, right? I mean, to say that the approach was cold, it could simply mean Klay was coming to the Warriors. Look, the Warriors offered him 2 years, $48 million, and that wasn't good enough. So they're different. So Klay,
that was a major mistake. I mean, he cost himself a lot of money.
And Klay's definition of cold could simply mean, well, we came back with 3 years, 60 and got no response. Is that cold that you got no response? It is also interesting in that Ramona Shelburne story that Joe Lacob and Klay Thompson played golf together a few weeks ago. And I guess that was an overture by Joe Lacob. He invited Klay to some hoity-toity like country club course that has really exclusive invites, and apparently that is when the reality was set in that both sides are ready to move on, and so I guess it was just a cordial game of golf where they kind of realized this relationship is over. Whatever, man. I mean, it sucked. Look, everything comes to an end. Everything. And Klay was going to leave at some point. It's a kind of a bummer that it's not finishing his career with the Warriors. But if you want to sustain success, this is what you got to do, man. You can't hold on to players when they're past their prime. And as an asset, Klay, for all the good stuff he did, and for, defensively, he was a massive liability. Shooting wise, 38% is by Klay standards not good. So he had a bad shooting year. He was inconsistent with his shot. And for me personally, we saw we saw game 6 Klay evaporate. Like, that part of his game ended. And when that part of his game ended, so too did the max value that came with him when it comes to contracts. He became a $15 to $20 million a year player. And Klay just was pissed that the team that he played for 13 years saw him like that. And this is where human nature came in. And it's a bummer, man. I mean, I get fans being upset that Klay's gone. I get it. At the same time, it's a part of life, and sometimes your favorite players move on.
I was listening the other day to Tolbert talking about, hey, man, it's like they got 13 years out of this run. It was going to end at some point.
Yeah.
How do you feel the fans are going to react to the run being over? Because it's clearly over. And there's a lot of Warrior fans who are just downright spoiled. There's just no other way we could say it other ways, but they're just spoiled. They just think that it's like their birthright to always contend, and they've never really endured the tough years like us older Warrior fans who saw a lot of bad ball for a lot of years. And I just get the feeling that I don't know. It just seems like the Warrior fan right now is really spoiled. I want to contend. It's like a petulant child, and it just might not be in the cards. And they might just have to acknowledge that the run's over and it was a great run.
Maybe this season will depend so much on how these young players develop in year 2, year 3, if they're still with the team next year. And to the fan, look, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So I was spoiled rotten when it comes to the 49ers, man. Like, the only thing I knew all the way through college was success, was Super Bowl contention for 18 years of my life, man. And so I get Warriors fans who expect greatness, who constantly want more. I get the mentality. I do understand it. And I think if the we still don't know what's going to happen this offseason, right? There's still one more big move coming. I am not prepared to, put the knife into the heart of the Warriors yet. They still have Steph. They still have Dre. They have some great pieces on this team. We're not done with the offseason yet. Are you right that the Warriors are done? Probably. But I'm going to hold out a little hope that maybe they have something left in the tank, and we shall see. But you're probably right.
Well, I hope. It's been a really fun run. It's been a really fun run. But name me outside of the Spurs, who went from Robinson to Duncan, there's really nobody who's been able to keep it going. Right. The Bulls couldn't keep it going. The Lakers couldn't keep it going. The Pistons couldn't keep it going. The Celtics couldn't keep it going. All these teams, there's like a cyclical nature of this thing. You go up, you go down, you get better, you get worse. I guess my big thing is I'm deathly afraid to trade Jonathan Kuminga.
Same.
Because I think Kuminga could wind up being spectacular in 2 years. And if he's spectacular in 2 years and you traded him at 21, you're going to look stupid. And I think Joe Lacob's smart enough to understand that. So I think he would rather give an extra number one, if the Jazz say, hey, we want Kuminga and 3 number ones, I get the feeling Joe might say, how about this? We'll give you 5 number ones, but we're taking Kuminga out, because I get the feeling that Joe wants to keep Kuminga. If somehow you could keep Kuminga and get Markkanen with what they've done, I think they're a playoff team, and I think they got a shot.
Agreed. And for the people in the chat who are saying Kuminga is him, we could see it as soon as this year. All right. For the folks saying like 2 to 3 years, we could start seeing greatness this year. I see Kuminga being a 20-plus point per game scorer. If that 3-point shot develops and it's just a matter of him, practicing, repetition, following Stephen Curry's practice patterns of being the first person in, last person out. I don't know how many shots Steph puts up per day. I've read reports 500, 1,000. Like if Kuminga follows that pattern, he could be a good shooter and he could emerge, man. But I'm totally with you, dude. This is an A+ offseason if the Warriors keep Kuminga and add Lauri Markkanen. That is a wildly successful offseason.
What do you think of this? Can they get DeRozan? Because what about, the Bulls are in this rebuild now too, aren't they? What do you think of Moody and Wiggins and a pick for DeRozan?
I don't think DeRozan is in the Warriors' plans for a number of reasons. And like DeMar DeRozan,
he's an old school player. He's, nobody seems like they really like those guys who don't shoot threes.
Yeah, and I don't see DeRozan to the Warriors. Like I've heard the Miami Heat are interested. I still think he's going to be the piece of the Lakers get, because someone in the chat, I think Douglas Mikes wrote, can we celebrate the Lakers having the worst offseason ever? Yes, let's celebrate. Their offseason has been worse than the Warriors by far. So we'll see, man. DeMar DeRozan, though, I just don't think is going to come to the Warriors. That would be a
lot of people think the Lakers want him. I know he went to SC. I'm sure he'd love to finish down there. 7-day visa. Says, I like Ben Simmons' take. I like the Ben Simmons take. He's a great defender, and being in the presence of great shooters on the planet, maybe some of that will rub off. Look at that. Somebody who likes the Ben Simmons. What were you going to say, Si? I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. And then people are missing the fact with the Ben Simmons discussion that you're not advocating for the Warriors to get him with the expectation that he's going to be like a legitimate contributor. You're looking at this from like a salary cap,
consolidating money. It's just 3 years of Wiggins for 1 year. You can get off of the first of all, you have a very high end of talent there in Simmons, so maybe you can turn him around. But even if you couldn't turn him around, you would then go into this year with a $40 million expiring contract.
Exactly.
So that either helps you on the cap if you let it expire, or maybe there's some other disgruntled star between now and the February trade deadline, and he makes $32 million, and suddenly you've got a piece where you can acquire that player. So, I look at it, Simmons. Also personally, there's a broken nature to Wiggins. And I know people don't think he's broken, but he just doesn't go hard. It's time. He needs a change of scenery. I think Simmons badly needs a change of scenery. Ultimately that's what in the NBA, when you make 25 million or more, or 40 million, like Simmons makes, there's limited numbers of trade possibilities, because there's limited numbers of guys who make the kind of money that it would take to be, to make the trade work on the trade machine. So Simmons and Wiggins, to me, seems like, hey, you know what? You take our problem, I'll take your problem, and you'll have 3 years of our problem. We'll have 1 year of your problem. And at the end of the year, we'll either get 40 million off our books and get down the road and sign somebody, or we'll trade him. And, the other name that I keep hearing connected to the Warriors in a trade, and people have suggested Wiggins to Milwaukee for Bobby Portis.
I would love that, dude. I just don't see how Milwaukee. First of all, I'm glad you brought that up. Why is Giannis staying in Milwaukee, man? Like, he was my pipe dream. Giannis to the Warriors was my pipe dream, and the logic behind it, if people can follow, is that the Bucks are going nowhere. Their entire hope is that Damian Lillard, who himself is 35, 36 this coming season, is going to magically come into camp in tip-top shape, and he's going to have the best year of his life, and they're going to see a Dame Lillard / Giannis Antetokounmpo, Superman, Robin duo carry the team to the NBA Finals. No, the reality of the situation is Dame Lillard, you've seen the best of him. You're never going to see the prime Dame ever again. And the supporting cast surrounding those two players is garbage. I have no clue why Giannis Antetokounmpo is not throwing a hissy fit about still being on that Bucks team. They have nothing going for him. And the reason why I bring that up is because you mentioned that Bobby Portis thing, and there's been some chatter about Portis for Wiggins. Why would the Bucks do that? Like, Bobby Portis is a solid asset. Sign me up in a second for that trade. I just don't see how the Bucks would agree to that. Like, if you're Milwaukee, why are you giving up a solid defensive player who can shoot corner threes, who's a good chemistry guy? Why trade him for someone?
I'm trying to think who would want Wiggins. I'll give you another one that actually. What do you think of this? Sacramento. I mean, they've got Mike Brown, who's, he played good defense under Mike Brown. Brown knows him. They have some pieces that the Warriors would like.
Barnes?
Well, Herder.
Barnes would be awesome. I'll take him back.
I mean, Herder for sure. Keon Ellis. Love Keon Ellis. You saw Joe Lacob on draft day when Chris Duarte got drafted. He pounded the table. He loves Chris Duarte. I mean, what if you could get Wiggins to Sacramento for Herder and Duarte?
Sign me up.
I would do that.
Dude, Wiggins is so tarnished as
or
an asset.
throw in JaVale McGee or something,
No, I mean, JaVale McGee. Someone in the chat brought him up. He's an unrestricted free agent. I would love him on the Warriors. I would have loved him on the Warriors last year. That's an example of Steve Kerr damaging relationships. Like, JaVale McGee and Steve Kerr do not like each other. Most bigs don't like Steve Kerr because of the way he uses them. So that's why JaVale McGee to the Warriors is probably never happening. I would have absolutely loved McGee to the Warriors. Anybody who takes Wiggins, please have him. He's yours. But that's how stained of an asset he is, man. The only team who was willing to trade for him are the Chicago Bulls, and they're offering Zach LaVine, who unfortunately is the one asset more toxic in the NBA than Andrew Wiggins.
Well, he just hurt. He's not as healthy, right? LaVine didn't play very many games, and he's got bad wheels.
So and he doesn't play defense, supposedly. I think that's the biggest knock on him is defensively, he's a massive liability. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, maybe to the Nets for Cam Johnson.
The Cam Johnson thing, I would.
Cam Johnson makes 25.6 and Wiggins makes 26. I mean, it would be
throw in a first. Take a first. I would do that in a second, but
yeah, that would be the kind of deal.
It would really suck if our show ended with that, and a second later, like something broke. So some news broke. There's nothing going on, like still nothing from the Warriors. Have you checked? I guess the chat would light up in a second, right? If something like that happens. So no news, huh? So no news for the Warriors. Can we? Joe Ingles. This is some news right here. 9 minutes ago. Joe Ingles has agreed on a 1-year deal to join the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that happened. Do you want to end the show?
He's 36.
It's not a big deal, but do you want to end the show? Draymond Green, I haven't heard this yet.
I never want to end the show. The show just keeps going.
No, but do you want to, do you mind if we play this soundbite real fast that even I haven't heard yet? It's Draymond Green's goodbye.
Will it demonetize the entire show?
Oh, will it really?
Will it? I'm asking.
No, I don't think so. No, because it would demonetize mine too. No, I don't think so. Actually, shit. Now that you say no, it won't. It will not. I played his clips on the last show I did all the time. We're good. We're gonna be good.
Victor says we get Cam Johnson, Kerr playing him over Jonathan Kuminga. They're different positions. Kuminga's a 4. This guy's more of a 3.
Cam Johnson would be a center in Steve Kerr's system. So
Cam Johnson can flat out shoot it. I mean, if you did have Buddy Hield and Cam Johnson and Steph, you may not even miss Klay Thompson. To be completely honest. Since Clay's not really a defender anymore anyway.
Let's hear from Dre. Approve it, if you don't mind.
What's that? Here we go.
I said approve the screen share if you don't mind. Let's hear from Draymond Green real fast, saying farewell to Klay Thompson.
I don't really know how I feel about it. Klay told us last week. I don't know who all he told, but I know he talked to me. Pretty sure he talked to Steph last week. And he just kind of was like, yeah, man, like, just kind of started talking through the years, like, been great. What we've done is so special. Like, when Klay told me, I was just able to listen, and it wasn't like we could finish like this, or like, you should rethink this. It was just like, wow, like, all right, like, congrats, bro. Like, I'm happy for you. That's dope. And like, to obviously reassure that changes nothing for us, like, changes the basketball court, obviously. But the relationships, they are what they are. They are forever. I think I might have dropped a couple tears, a tear or two.
There we go. That's Draymond.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, these guys are close. played a lot of ball. I mean, think about this. The Warriors, a basketball team is like a 20-person traveling party that lasts 6 months. You're going on literally a cross-country tour with like 20 people, that your teammates and your coaches. It's like 20, 25 people. Oh, wait, here we go. The Monty Show. Do you believe in the Monty Show? Is that Tim Montemayor? Remember Tim Montemayor?
I don't know.
Remember Monty?
I got to look that up.
It's in Utah. It's a show in Utah.
Oh.
He says, report, in a potential deal for Markkanen, the Warriors will not include Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga per the Monty Show. I'm telling you, Markkanen makes $27 million. So if you look at the trade machine, you can get Markkanen for Peyton, Moody, and Podziemski and draft picks. And to me, I love Peyton, and I don't want to move Peyton. I think I'd rather move Looney. Would you rather move Looney or Peyton?
Peyton. Only because he's redundant.
Really? Looney seems
because there's only, but here's the thing. There's only 5. You can only play 5 people at a time. So if you're playing Gary Payton II, who's 6'2", like that's one of your 5 spots going to a tiny guy. Whereas at least with Looney, I to me, the Warriors are so small. If you give me a choice between a big and a tiny guy, I'm going to take the big. So
Cosman Cozy Code says Dibbs said he worked with that guy Monty and he's not reliable. Yeah, no, I know Monty as well. I mean, it's Tim Montemayor, but he is in Utah, so it's not like he's like some guy who's living in Tulsa and he's just he's just weighing in on Twitter. He lives in Utah, and he's been a media person in Utah for a number of years now. It's possible that he has a source with the Jazz.
So the source is saying again that Wiggins and Kuminga are not included. So who are you saying? Like why would I guess if you're Utah,
here it is once again. Exo Wonder, the Warriors.
She knows her stuff too, by the way.
The potential deal for Markkanen, the Warriors will not include Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga. Well, first of all, Wiggins makes 26, Markkanen makes 17. So if you trade Markkanen for Wiggins, the Jazz have to throw another player back. And I don't think that would happen unless it was a really bad contract. And if it's a really bad contract, the Warriors probably don't want it. So that doesn't surprise me that Wiggins isn't part of the deal. But the fact that Kuminga is not part of the deal, I mean, if the Warriors can make this trade with Podziemski, Moody, and Peyton and picks, how many picks before that's a bad deal?
I think they can only give up 2, and then I've heard some mention that they could
swap. What I heard, wasn't it 2 and a swap?
And a swap, yeah, that's what I've heard too. Yeah, so that's all you can give up. But then they can trade Moody's a first-round pick, Podziemski's a first-round pick, right?
And Podziemski's would be a very popular player in Utah as well, probably because Podziemski knows how to play the game, and he looks a lot like the people in the stands. They would love Podziemski. He'd be a cult hero. Maybe that's a rule. If you trade one player, you got to get one back. But yeah, Markkanen for Peyton, Moody, and Podziemski and 2 number 1s.
Sign me up.
I agree. I'm there. I love that move. And if you do have, so what would your starting 5 be? Let's just say all these deals went through. You get Slow-Mo, you get Hield, you get Markkanen. What's your starting 5?
I mean,
you don't move Kuminga.
So it'd be Steph. So is Wiggins still on the team?
No. Yes. Well, temporarily. I mean, I'm hoping they can get rid of Wiggins. So basically, you'd have Steph and Lindy Waters at the 1.
No.
You'd have Hield, DeAnthony Melton at the 2.
I'd put Melton at the 1. I'd switch. I know it doesn't matter, but I'd swap Lindy Waters. And Melton's a point guard, so
they said Waters is a point guard.
So, but he's
a shooter though. Okay,
he's a shooter.
Either way. Okay, so you basically your backcourt is Hield, Melton, Curry, and Waters, and then your small forward would be
Kuminga,
right? Kuminga, Wiggins, and Kyle Anderson right now.
Oh yeah, Kyle Anderson. Okay,
and then your power forward would be Markkanen and Draymond.
Oh,
And your 5 would be Trace Jackson Davis and the BC big man, Quentin
Okay,
Post.
so the starting lineup I would guess would be Steph, Buddy, Kuminga, Dre, Markkanen, right?
Yeah.
What would you think?
With Dre at the 5?
Or maybe
would you start Trace Jackson? TJD?
No. Trace Jackson Davis would go to the bench. It would be Steph, Buddy Hield at the 2, and that's interchangeable. Maybe if Wiggins stays,
Steph,
maybe Wiggins,
Hield, Kuminga, Markkanen, and Draymond.
That would be my 5. Yeah. What would you?
That's 3 dead-eye shooters, man.
No, that's a contender. That is a contender, especially with the bench. I mean, your bench has DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson. I love Guy Santos, and
you do?
He stays on the team. Who am I forgetting? Lindy Waters. Who else do we have? Trace Jackson
on the bench.
Davis?
Well, yeah. you'd have Quentin Post on the bench. You'd have Trace Jackson Davis on the bench. You'd have Kyle Anderson on the bench. Technically, you'd still have Wiggins on the bench. You'd have Hield starting, so you'd have Melton on the bench, and you'd have Lindy Waters on the bench.
Sign me up.
See, that's where if you could pawn off Wiggins on Sacramento in a deal for Herder, it might not be bad to have Steph and Herder starting and bring Hield off the bench. What do you think of that? Steph, Herder, Kuminga, Markkanen, and Draymond?
And adding to that, I love it. AC.
It's a little pale. It's a little pale, but it's a
and then AC with the winning comment, Wiggins for Bruce Brown. Mwah.
Bruce Brown. There you go. $22 million expiring 1-year deal, Denver, right?
There you go. And Mama,
or is it Denver? Is he still in Denver?
No, he went to Toronto.
He's in Toronto, yeah.
Or I think he's with Toronto right now. And they're going to
maybe that would be popular, sending Wiggins back to Canada.
Oh my God, Mamba, look at you! And Mamba also adding Usman Garuba. Bring him back. Sign me up.
About
he's a former first-round pick who gives you size. Yes.
What about he's saying sign Usman Garuba?
Yeah, bring him back. Yeah.
He didn't play at all this year.
At all. No, he was in the G League the whole time. And then naturally, of course, Kerr waited until it was too late to play him. So
I'm telling you, though, the Serbian swingman that's on their summer league team is not bad. I mean, you got to watch their summer league team. We'll see. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Here we go. Raymond says Trace Jackson Davis, Draymond, Markkanen, Kuminga, and Steph.
Sign me up.
So now he's got the gigantic front line.
And I prefer that. That's the only way you're going to win.
So you go 5, Trace Jackson at the 5, Draymond at the 4, Markkanen at the 3, Kuminga, who doesn't dribble well, at the 2. Man,
why do you say that, Larry? Why do you say that? I don't agree with that at all. Why do you say Kuminga doesn't dribble well?
I don't think he handles in traffic the way he will in 2 years.
Okay. Okay, fair. That's fair. Okay.
You know, I mean, hey man, I love Jonathan Kuminga. I was the guy in that draft who was absolutely thinking that Kuminga should have gone first.
Same.
Do you remember that draft?
I do. He was projected for a moment in number 1.
He was supposed to go 1. Who went 1 that year?
Kate Cunningham.
Okay, so he shouldn't have gone 1, but he should have gone 2, right? Is it Green?
He should have gone above Jalen Suggs. Like, he should have gone above Jalen Suggs.
Well, that was 5, I think.
Evan Mobley probably should have gone above him. We still don't know how he's going to turn out.
Scotty Barnes. Jalen Green went to Houston, right?
Jalen Green was the number 2 pick that year, correct? And I'd probably take Kuminga over Jalen Green. I don't know. Jalen Green and him were both very raw coming out of college or out of G League, wherever they were. And then another top pick was Scotty Barnes. That was another guy picked ahead of.
I love Scotty Barnes.
Love Scotty Barnes.
Rodney Alvarez is Wiggins to the Raptors for RJ Barrett. Canadian for Canadian.
Toronto's not doing that.
I take RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett's not a shooter, but he might be able to play the points a little bit.
But Toronto's not doing that deal.
No, they're not moving that deal.
And then a friendly reminder, going back to that draft, the 2021 draft, the Warriors were all set to draft Josh Giddey. A lot of people aren't aware of this. That was Steve Kerr's boy. But then Josh Giddey was snapped up by the OKC Thunder, and that's how Kuminga fell to the Warriors.
What did Giddey make? Could you trade Wiggins to Chicago for Giddey?
No.
East Coast bias says I'm right, by the way. JK can't dribble. Says JK can't dribble.
Agree to disagree, man. And if you follow me on Threads at Dogwild, I just posted a new video because people in years past have criticized Kuminga in these workout videos. They're like, why are you just doing dunks or shot? No, he's now working on defense. The newest video I posted, it's a minute of him working on his ball handling. Maybe not a minute, but No, he's working on his dribbling skills, man, and he's a much better ball handler than people give him credit for.
Rebel DeSound says Warriors should be able to get Markkanen in without giving up Kuminga.
I hope so. See. Good to see you, Rebel.
We'll see. Yeah, good to see you.
Can Mamba sign up, subscribe to Golden Days, please? Yeah, I'm still around, man.
Yeah, everybody hit like and subscribe on Si's channel. I'll put it up on the screen here just a second. Mark Graves says Wiggins doesn't exist in Larry's world, and I'm here for it.
And I like the Traveling Urquidez writing in the most recent comment that Kuminga should work on his pump fake. The pump fake is such an underrated a skill set to have in the NBA, dude. It works. Like Chris Mullin was a master at it. Klay Thompson is really good at it.
Especially since Kuminga's got monster hands. I mean, you can go pump fake like James Worthy, just like with the ball, just like
palming it. Yeah, totally.
By the way, LeBron's agreed to a 2-year deal with the Lakers.
Yeah.
Is Bronny going to be anything?
No,
I don't think so either.
No,
I loved how on draft night, all the ESPN people are just lecturing us with all this anger about, don't you bring up that it's nepotism. Why? It's like, it's Woj and Malika and Perk, and those people are so far up LeBron's ass that they're so worried about kissing up to him because he's such a big player in the NBA world that they just, how dare anybody say it's nepotism? Let people say what they want to say, man. He's a 5'10" guy. Wait a second here. He's a 5'10" guy who averaged 4 points a game in the shitty Pac-12. And you're telling me that he was one of the best players in the NBA draft?
No.
And it's like, oh, I mean, come on. If his name's Bronny Smith, he doesn't even get a camp invite. Instead, it's like you got people on ESPN lecturing us about, don't you talk about nepotism. This league's full of nepotism. It's like, all right. And this guy is part of it.
Exactly. So that's all I was going to say is that
if you can't say the league's full of nepotism and then say, don't say anything about nepotism. It's like, I mean, they're so sucked up to LeBron. It makes you want to puke.
It's disgusting. It is disgusting.
It really is. It's like, dude, is LeBron control whether your family lives or dies? I mean, Woj, aren't you kind of set by now? Aren't you making big money? Do you really need to kiss up to LeBron that much that you're going to like basically get mad at anybody who suggests, nepotism when it's blatant and obvious nepotism?
Yeah, that was a weird one with Woj. I almost feel like Woj was getting pissed at people for interfering with one of his main connections at Clutch. Because that's what Woj is, right? He's an information, network, and it all comes to him and gets redistributed to the audience, and Clutch is one of his prime connections. And you're absolutely right, dude. It was ridiculous. Why should you ever not criticize nepotism? Nepotism is not a good thing. It gives unfair advantages to people. He's right. He was right that it's all over the NBA. Maybe we should address that as well, including the Warriors, including your network ESPN. Kendra Andrews, I know who her sister is. That was a ridiculous hire. It's everywhere. And nepotism should not be supported. It should not be accepted. So I'm totally with you, man. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. I mean, these people are like, don't you call it nepotism? And then like 5 seconds later, hey, check out the Phoenix Mercury tonight and the, blankety blank sky in the WNBA. It's awesome. It's like, so what you want us to believe that you have credibility, but then you're telling us that the WNBA is awesome and because you're carrying the rights and that we all can't call the Lakers drafting a 4-point a game, 5'10" guard as nepotism when there's, it's just
how funny, by the way, is it that Bronny until the scouting combines was listed as like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, a bunch of liars at SC. He's 7'2". Oh, I'm sorry. He's 5'10".
He's like so misreported. It was so off.
You know what's so funny about that? Do you remember Roy Tarpley?
Yes.
Roy Tarpley played at Michigan. He was listed his senior year at Michigan at 6'7". On NBA draft night. On NBA draft night, they announced him. He walked across the stage as a 7-footer.
Yeah.
Somehow usually they go the other way. Usually they lie and say that you're bigger. Michigan had him as a 6'7" player. He was 7 feet on draft night.
That's ridiculous. He didn't grow that much, did he?
He was a great player too.
He was.
alcohol problems
for the Mavericks. And
yeah, I mean, what an unbelievable. He was like 20 points, 15 rebounds. He was an awesome player.
He was.
All right, that's going to do it.
Real fast, Dank in the chat writes, is Curry really 6'3"? He's 6'2.5" is what I've read. With shoes, he's 6'3". I just wanted to answer that because I actually knew the answer. So
Sam says, I will bet my whole house that Jazz won't give up Lauri if we don't give them Kuminga. Sam, where do you live? We have to know what your whole house is worth. If you live in downtown Detroit, that means you're wagering like $65,000. If you live in a flop house in the Tenderloin, it may be $1.5 million.
Right.
It's kind of true. We kind of need to know. Wait, where is it? Here we go. Exo Wonder. Great show today, guys. Don't end it.
We'll just go forever. It's almost
just
one.
Keep going.
This is
here we go.
Cool out there, guys. This heat wave is not a joke.
Brutal.
It is.
The traveling Urquides says, I love your show, guys. I love your guys' show. Thanks for putting it together. Side note, Krueg, are the 49ers getting rid of Aiyuk? Yes, They will trade Aiyuk before noon. Oh, it's already 1 o'clock. So that's already wrong. No, I don't think they're going to get rid of Aiyuk, but I will say this. If Aiyuk doesn't show up at the beginning of training camp, I would call him and I would give him 1 week. You got 1 week. You don't show up at the beginning of training camp, fine. But if you don't show up after 1 week after the start of training camp, I'm not taking your calls and I'm shopping you for the best offer. So if you really want to be a 49er, then that's it right there. Because we are not going to get dragged around by the nose until week 8. And you're going to come in at the last second and just do the minimum so you accrue a year. That's not the way it's going down. And the bottom line is, if Denver called tomorrow and said, we'll give you Patrick Surtain Jr. straight up for Aiyuk, if I was a betting man, I think I would rather have Surtain and a number 1 corner than have Aiyuk
all day.
I think you have a better chance to win the Super Bowl with Pearsall and Cowing and the receivers you have and a number 1 corner like Surtain than bringing back Aiyuk. And I think that deal could be put together. So I think the Niners like Aiyuk. I think they want him back. I think he wants to be back. But he did say on that podcast that he believes that Jaden Daniels is the quarterback that can help him take his game to the next level. Be careful what you wish for, buddy. That's all I would say. Be careful what you wish for. That's a rookie quarterback in the NFL who could be he might be good in 3 years, but the odds that he's going to be good right away, I don't know, man. You're playing with Brock Purdy right now. He's playing pretty well.
Before we go real fast, going back to the Warriors, Larry, and this is the question that's been posed to me that I don't have a clear answer for, and I pose it to you now because I'm curious to know what your answer is. Who is the Warriors' number 2 scorer right now?
Right now, the Warriors' number 2 scorer is going to be.
And the fact that you're struggling to answer that is all I need.
No, I would say it's going to be Buddy Hield. I'm going to say it's going to be Buddy Hield.
And that's not a good thing. And this is not fair to Steph, man. This is why there needs to at least be one more move, because right now Steph has no help offensively. He has none. I mean, Klay Thompson, and that was a whole other problem last year, is that Klay Thompson should not have been the number 2 scorer on this team, yet there we were. And now you traded him away for nothing. But they got to address that. I think that's like one of the primary things. And Lauri Markkanen would solve so many things. We can only hope, Larry, for Lauri Markkanen to the Warriors without them giving up Kuminga. But that's not what I've heard, and I hope I'm wrong. And this is always a great show, man.
And you've been wrong before.
Have I?
Well, quite a bit. I mean, no, I'm just joking. Bogus is laughing makes you forget the heat. What is my phone is I typed in Walnut Creek.
What is it right now?
It says nothing. It's not giving me any it's like not registering. Like
I was in Novato, California yesterday. It was 108 degrees there. I'm not joking, man. I posted it on my Instagram just to prove it so people knew I wasn't lying. 108 degrees. It was insane.
My brother sent me a thing for the week of Sacramento. The week in Sacramento is ridiculous. Listen to this. What day is today? Thursday?
Wednesday.
113 today in Sac.
Oh my God, dude. That's
tomorrow, 4th of July, 111.
Oh,
Friday, 111. Saturday, 112. Sunday, 110. Monday, it's a cold spell coming on. It'll be 108.
That's like Texas weather, dude. That's like Jesus Christ. That's like Arizona weather, man. That is insane. Sacktown.
Matt Brotherton, 114 for today or tomorrow in Sac.
Oof. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Suddenly makes my 98 degrees that I'm sitting in currently a lot better. Is it true? I feel like once you hit a certain temperature, like 108 is what I was in yesterday in Nevada. And to me, it's like once you reach a certain point, it doesn't matter anymore, man.
What's the hottest place you've ever lived?
I think, lived? Houston.
Or even for a short amount of time.
I lived for 2 years in a town outside of Houston called the Woodlands.
Oh my God. Houston is just the armpit of America.
It is. You're absolutely right, man. And that was not fun. And literally 9 months out of the year, you just have to hide in air conditioning. Can
I tell you my Houston story? Houston is like a swamp. I mean, it's literally a swamp. So I'm staying at the Hojo's, right, in Houston, which granted, it's not the Westin, it's not the Hilton, it's a Hojo's. Okay. It was a trade account. So I'm staying at a Hojo's. So I go into the Hojo's, I check in. It's humid as hell, but it's November, so it's not summertime, so it's not that bad. But it's still humid as hell. And I go into my room, I flip on the TV, go take a shower, come out. I swear to you, there was a bug on the wall that was the size of a brick. It was like my mouse for my computer.
This is Houston?
This is Houston. This is right by the airport in Houston. Okay, so it's just a monster, right? So I get how the book, there's usually like a book in your motel or hotel room that
like a Bible normally, right?
Yeah, where the gym is and where the local pizza place is. It's kind of a binder. It's a binder. It's sitting so I get the binder and I throw it against the wall. It hits the bug square on. The bug doesn't fall and doesn't die. So now I take the thing.
What are we talking here?
Well, that's what I thought. It looked like a cockroach. It's gigantic beetle with antenna going. So I take the thing and I just smash it into the wall. Now I'm like, I'm blood and guts everywhere.
Are you hearing the cracking?
Yeah, I hear this crunch.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like it might as well have been like a graham cracker or something. You start hearing this cracking. Okay. It's just gooey and messy, and now it's dead, right? So I'm like, oh man, I killed the bug. I killed the bug. 2 minutes later, a gigantic another one crawls up off the wall. So now I call the concierge. I'm like, hey, I'm up here in room 514, and I've got a roach. I've got roaches in my room. Like, oh, sir, we apologize. I'll find you a different room and this and that. So now they send me to the third floor. I pack up my stuff. I walk down to the third floor, get in my new room. I'm in there for like 5-10 minutes. There's another one in this new room, right? So now I call back down to the desk. I'm like, hey, my last room had roaches. You put me in another room. This room's got roaches. And they're like, we'll send somebody up right away. 5 minutes later, knock on the door. Guy walks in and he's like, sir, you said that you had roaches in here. I'm like, yeah, right there. Look. And he goes, like this matters. He goes, oh, sir, that's not a roach. That's a water bug. I'm like, what difference does it make? It's a beetle.
It's a water bug.
It's a water bug is just another kind of a roach.
Okay. All right.
It's just another roach. It's just a Houston-based roach.
My God!
It was big as my fist. He's like, "Oh yeah, we get them here a lot." Oh. And I'm like, "Well, what do you do?" I mean, literally, if I stepped on that, I could trip on these things. They're so big. And sure enough, he's like, he put some zapper. He brought some electric zapper in, and I heard the zapper go off like 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night. It's like, zzz, and it's like these. Just monster bugs. So anyway, Houston, Texas, the
disgusting.
Worst.
And I just had to Google water.
Water bugs. Yeah. What is it? Did you see it?
Yeah, I did. They're like roaches, but they bite. And they can live underwater for like indefinite amounts of time to hide. Yeah,
I didn't know they bite. Oh
They
God!
bite. I just saw
I could, that would. I wish I knew that at the time. I would have said these things bite. Raymond Kelly says, "Thanks for mentioning my comment, guys. I know Kerr won't do it, but we need to go with a bigger lineup." Sounds like they've been locked on.
No, not anymore. Now
not anymore.
Days. Now they're dazed. They're dazed and golden.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Not confused, but golden.
We got a quick question here from Ken Mamba. Guys, is Dario Saric, and that's the correct pronunciation, still on the roster? I was calling him Saric for a long time, only to figure out that he was not a Saric, he was a Saric.
Saric, yeah, SH as the pronunciation. And no, he's an unrestricted free agent currently. I don't think the Warriors are going to re-sign him.
There we go. And Vic Ferrari, what's a better name, Hayden Birdsong or Lindsey Waters III? Hayden Birdsong is the Giants' rookie right-handed pitcher. So have you seen Hayden Birdsong?
No.
I mean, he looks like 11 years old. I mean, I've never seen anybody younger. I mean, you think Dave Fleming doesn't shave? Dave Fleming is like, Rich Aurelia compared to that guy. Hayden Birdsong is going to shave in like 2029.
Oh my God. I got to eat, man. I can't believe we're doing this for 2 hours. All
right, we're out of here.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, wait, let me just get the comment off the screen so people can see size thing there. It says Golden Days. So if you want to follow Cy on YouTube, it's under Golden Days, Golden, second word Days, DAZE.
Like you're dazed and confused. Yeah.
There you go. Everybody hit like and subscribe. Thanks to Cy. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to all the people in the chat. And have a great day. Beat the Heat tonight at 8 o'clock. Dieter Kurtenbach stops by. We'll talk a little 49ers with the great Dieter Kurtenbach. That's coming up later today. Cy, beat the Heat. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.